Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Executive Affairs Work Session. As you know, we usually do not hold work sessions during the summer, but we came together during our board retreat and decided that we would do board training. Council of Great City Schools is with us, Rodney Jordan and Cindy Ellsberg. I said it wrong the last time. Thank you for joining us. And no further ado, we'll get started.
All right, well, good afternoon. It is great to be in the wonderful city of Buffalo. I'm going to test out sharing my screen here, so just give me one moment and we will get underway. I think this will. Okay, so first of all, just appreciate you all having these sessions. You know, we've been turned this into mini cohort sessions since I guess about March. And so we're here today to continue our work with you and our coaching with you, as you see on governing on behalf of your students. I just wanted to share a quote with you. Some of you who have had conversations with me will often hear me reference Dr. Howard Thurman. And Howard Thurman was a theologian. He was considered the godfather of the American civil rights movement and had a big influence on nonviolent social change. And so earlier today, I was looking for another quote that I use often, and I came across this one, and I just wanted to kind of set the tone with this quote from Howard Thurman. It goes as follows: leaders must be tough enough to fight, tender enough to cry, human enough to make mistakes, humble enough to admit them, strong enough to absorb the pain, and resilient enough to bounce back and keep on moving. And so, what we want to center our conversation and work with you today is how you're going to keep on moving on behalf of students. The other thing I was, just so you all know, I'm a official subscriber to your newspaper, and so I'm reading all about the new stadium and
Oh, you mean Buffalo newspaper?
yes,
Oh, for everyone who doesn't know, Rodney lives in Virginia.
yes, yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, your Buffalo newspaper.
Got it.
So I follow, things going on at the stadium and preseason getting started. And, we often will have a reference to sports analogies. The other thing I just want to kind of, as I was thinking about your brand new stadium, and it looks like something was going on this week and people were getting rained on and people had concerns about line of sight and so forth. But I was just kind of reflecting on, as we talk about, being this to win for students. And the goal, of course, for Buffalo this year is Super Bowl or bust. But I was just thinking about the thousands of people, the thousands of you that may show up at a football game and just yelling and cheering or booing, whatever the case may be. But if you ever listen to the after game interviews from the football players, especially the quarterback or the center who's hiking the ball, they often describe how they don't hear a thing. They are so focused. They're so focused on their task. They're so focused on executing the play, listening to the coach, watching the scoreboard, making sure that the folks are in the right position. They don't hear any of that noise because they are so focused on their task and on their goals. And so that was the other thought that came to me um, as you all will continue to hear all, folks in the stands, all kinds of noise, concessions, everything else going around you. But I just want you to think about, and, throughout this and in your continuing work, how are you so ruthlessly focused on what you are gathered here to do to represent the vision and values of the community and to be clear in your priorities and to be focused on monitoring progress for your students, that all the other stuff is just drowned out because you're so intently focused on why you are here. So you all know I made this little image after our session that we had in May and what we talked about then. I just want to kind of reground again. It's we described then about this is a table, this is a setting, this is a gathering of transformation, and that pouring new coffee into old coffee doesn't get you the transformation. It's really about taking this environment, this culture that you're setting, and pouring new coffee in for the betterment of your students. So I think all of that kind of fits with the theme of you all are the board with your happily sworn in new superintendent that I've read all great things about and have had opportunity to interview previously. And so with all of that, I'm going to invite Cindy, and in the couple of hours that we have, she's going to get you all kicked off with some grounding, and then I'm going to pick up and we will have a very focused day on behalf of your students. So.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Rodney. And thank you again for having us here. I love that you are giving the time for this opportunity to learn together, as you know, Rodney mentioned, and as you all kind of set this up to be a little mini Buffalo Public School Board cohort. And I also would add that leadership is also learning. It's not always having the right answer or not, but it's some of that humbleness to make mistakes, but it's also humbleness to admit I don't have the right answer, but I'm willing to learn, and especially as being a part of a learning, the Board of Education, being the leaders of a learning institution. So in that spirit, we're actually going to start with a writing activity. We can call it a pop quiz. And so if you get something to write on, write with, I'm going to ask you to complete this. I'm going to give you some very specific instructions. So don't start writing right away, because I want you to reflect a little bit before you start writing. The first question is going to center on purpose. So if we can forward to the next slide. I want you to write down in 10 words or less, 10 words, because that provides clarity. Write down your answer to the question, why do school systems exist? You had to boil it down to 10 words or fewer. Why does this school system exist? Why did this Buffalo City school system, why is there a school system here? Right. I think I see Ben stopping in the room. Well, who will be the first to share? Your 10 words or less. Why do school systems exist?
Remember Rodriguez has her hand up.
Oh,
Remember Rodriguez?
Thank you, VP. I have to preserve democracy and uphold the shared values of American citizenship.
Preserve democracy and uphold the, did you say American values of citizenship?
Shared values of American.
Shared values of American citizenship. Thank you. Thanks for going first. Board Member Hawkins. Oh, you're on mute.
You're muted,
Okay.
Board Member Hawkins.
Mute. I should know better than that, right? Okay. I can't see nobody.
See
We can hear you.
Okay, there we go. Basically to educate the children and prepare them for workers out in the community. You know what I mean?
To educate children and prepare them for work in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Who, Dr. Evans Brown?
Mine was similar. I said to educate children to the fullest degree so they can graduate and be college and career ready.
To educate children to the fullest degree so that they can graduate and be college and career ready.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah.
Response was to best prepare students for life's endeavors.
To best prepare students for life's endeavors. Thank you. Who else?
I wrote, to educate students on the vision and values of their community.
To educate students on the vision and values of their community. Dr. Newman?
To educate students, teach life skills, and provide.
To educate students, teach life skills, and provide community. Thank you.
I said to improve the lives of children and to create a prepared citizenry.
To improve the lives of children and prepare
Create a prepared.
create a prepared citizenry. Thank you. Thank you. Did I miss anyone? And welcome. We are just we just got started, starting with the pop quiz with question 1 up on the board. Just want to pause us here for a moment and help us to notice something important. Why didn't I hear anyone say to have a balanced budget or to renovate facilities or to respond to parent and constituent concerns or to have effectively managed operations or even to choose curriculum? Why didn't I hear anybody say that?
I'll give you this. I think maybe because the way you phrased it, it's more of a mission like question as opposed to getting into the weeds or the specifics.
Yeah, so more of a mission centered question than of the weeds and the specifics.
Yes.
Board Member Hawkins, I see your hand.
Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I mean, basically, students are first. The kids are first, so we got to start there before we talk about facilities and things of that nature. It starts with the children first. With me, that's
Yeah, it starts with the
Wow.
children first before we talk about any of those other things. Are any of those things unimportant?
Of course not.
those are important, but
Yeah, they're
those are definitely important because it gives the kids the facilities and the resources that they need to succeed. But it starts with the kids first.
Yeah, those things are part of the daily reality in Buffalo schools, and those things are needed. There's a lot of things that are needed to operate a school district. And as board members, you're going to hear from families, you're going to hear from constituents, you're going to hear from community leaders, advocates, all sorts of people about those types of things and about things that deeply matter to them. And about things that are happening in schools and that they and sometimes they're going to ask for action now, and no denying that sometimes pressure is real and sometimes that those are the things that come in front of you time after time, and those things, like I said, do matter. It's not that they don't matter, but they are at different levels of the organization. But the thing is that there is one reason and one reason only, and I want to just ground it ground you here for the rest of our conversation today. School systems exist for one reason and one reason only, and that is to improve student outcomes. School systems exist to improve student outcomes, to cause improvements in what students know and are able to do. Much of what I heard you all say is very relevant to that, statement. School systems exist to improve student outcomes.
And did you say to measure what students are able to know and do?
So to cause improvements in what students know and are able to do. Yep, student outcomes. Improving means it improves what students know and are able to do. So, let's look at the next question. This time we're going to use a scale of 0 to 10, 0 meaning not at all focused, and 10 meaning completely and entirely focused. So question 2, how focused is your board, is this board on the reason school systems exist? And then question 3, how focused are you personally on that same purpose, excuse me. 0 to 10. Okay, for now, we're going to hold on to those numbers and come back to those later. We're going to move on to question 4 now, and you'll answer this with your best estimate because we're asking you to rely on your memory, thinking about your last board meeting. What percentage of time at your last board meeting was focused on why school systems exist? So if you think about the amount of time from when the board meeting was opened to when the board meeting was adjourned, and think about how much of that time was focused on why school systems exist. What do you believe that percentage of time was? And again, a gut level estimate because we're relying on our memory, and we'll test it shortly. So now we'll move to question 5. Without looking them up.
I missed the
Oh.
question. Oh, okay, so how focused are you personally? Was 3, right?
Was 3. Yep.
Got it.
Yep. And so question 4 was this percentage of time. And now we're going to question 5. Question 5, without looking it up, what are the board's currently adopted goals? Without looking them up. List the board's currently adopted goals. Just write down what you believe they are. And maybe the people online could give a thumbs up when you're done with your, so I can see pencils going down here, but I don't know when you guys are done online. Anybody need more time? If not, I'm going to move to the next question. And this is the last question, I believe, of our quiz. We're gonna I want you to write down your response to this. And actually it should be a part A, part B. I think I think it gave us a and B.
Double A.
So first, I want you to write down what you believe to be the three most important behaviors of a school board that are aligned with why school systems exist. So think about that from the school board perspective, not from the superintendent perspective, not from a staff perspective, teacher perspective. You only get three. And then, so you'll write down as part A, you write down those three behaviors. And as part B, from where did you learn that information? So how do you know? How do you know that those are the three most important behaviors? From where did you learn that? You. Okay. So we've just on your papers, and then together we named why school systems exist. And then as for the rest of your questions, talked about, we haven't talked about it yet. You've written down how focused you believe the board is, how focused you believe you are personally, how much time you believe was spent on the purpose for school systems existing in the last meeting, what you believe the board's adopted goals are, and then now the top three behaviors boards can engage in around that purpose and where that understanding came from. So we will revisit those items. But before we go, and before we move on, let's go back to questions 2 and 3 for a moment. You rated how focused the board is on the reason school systems exist. With a 0 to 10, 0 being not at all focused, 10 being really laser focused. And then you rated how focused you personally are on the same person. Before we talk about the numbers themselves, I want to ask you, how would you know? How would you know? What evidence tells you what leaders value and prioritize most? How do we know? Yeah. What you spend your time on? Yeah, it's how we, the most common evidence is time, treasure, and talent. And so what essentially undergirds all of those is time. It's the resource underneath all of the others. So one of the clearest ways is to look at how leaders spend their time. Now look at the numbers that you gave yourself on the board. We're not going to decide yet whether they're accurate. To do that, we are going to look at a way to more precisely think about how the board uses its time. We're going to start with 3 ideas, and some of you may be familiar with these. However, we will always review, and it may be new for some of you as well. So the 3 ideas being inputs, outputs, and outcomes. So, oh yeah, I missed that side. Let's say we're playing a game of basketball, and this is where Rodney's going to probably have to come in and save me because this is Cindy trying to use a sports analogy. But we're playing a game of basketball. What's the outcome? What is the outcome you want?
To win.
To win. Yeah. why is running the right play or having the right game plan or playbook, or even the right roster of players, why is that not the outcome I want?
Helps you get to the outcome.
Helps get to the outcome.
Winners
are
make
very-
money.
Say that again?
Winners make money. They
Winners make money.
generate an income.
That's why that, so
But
winners,
what, I mean, rephrase that question, without the players you mentioned though. So what, can you rephrase that question?
so first I asked, what is the outcome that we want?
Mhm.
I'm playing a game of basketball. What's the outcome we want?
Yeah, you want to
right?
win. You want to win.
Yep. So why is having the a great roster of players, a great game plan, running the right play in a certain situation, why are those not the outcomes I want?
Those are variables that change.
Those are variables that change.
Well, maybe that's not the way how you trying to win.
Maybe that's not the way I'm trying to win.
Huh?
Why-
Looks good on paper.
Looks good on paper.
I mean, you're the coach of the team, right? So
Oh,
sometimes,
I'm not the coach.
well,
Are
We
you
haven't
the
gotten there yet.
franchise owner?
What?
Are you the franchise owner then? Like, what is
What's the
the,
outcome we want? This is a we want. What outcome do we want?
so who are we then? I think that's what we're trying to get at in
Board.
the scenario.
Those of us who are playing the game of basketball,
So we're
Right.
players?
We're the
we're pretending.
participants of
or we're the team. We're the team.
It looks like we're the team. It says, what is the outcome you want? Let's pretend we're playing a game of basketball. What is the outcome that you want? So I guess we're the players.
I
You
like
got
to become the franchise owner.
Well, you got to know how to play with each other first and foremost. You ain't gonna win. Let's just be Clut and John. If you don't know how to play with each other, you're not gonna win.
Oh, you're good. You're fine.
Got to know how to play each other, but
Play with each other.
play with
It's
each
a
other.
team. We're a team. We're
Yeah.
part of a team. One don't work without the other. I would have to
Yeah.
trust you to do a specific duty what's required in your role to get done. And that's all I'm saying. We all have to rely on one another to get the job done. It's the only way we're gonna win.
Yeah, but why is that not the outcome we want? Is that the outcome we want? Is to trust each other?
The outcome is to win.
The outcome is to win.
Outcome is to win, but it's a lot of things you have to do to win. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that goes into it.
Those games.
Yeah, those are all strategies, right? Those are all strategies. There's all sorts of things we have to do to win the game.
Right.
Accurate. So we have to trust each other. We have to have that playbook. We have to have we have to have a roster of players. We hope that they're great players. We have to run what we think are the best plays
Do
in the
we
moment.
have
They're variables.
do we have
Those
the
are
same
go
we
ahead.
do we share the same vision to reach one common goal?
Do we share the same vision to reach one common goal? So I would say the vision is the goal. The how is the strategy. So do we all share the same opinion on the how? No, probably not. Probably not.
No.
But that doesn't mean that those are not strategies, accurate?
Right.
Yeah.
It's all types of strategies to win, but we got to be on the same page in order to get it done, regardless of what that is. We all have to work together in order to win. It's just not, we're not going to be a team of 5 and then 2 win and 3 fail. That just don't work. like that.
Yeah. The team is yeah. I hear what you're saying. So just to come back to it, the outcome we want is to win.
Mhm.
There's all sorts of strategies that might be employed to achieve the outcome that we might use. Right? Like all sorts of them. They can help to get to the outcome I want.
Right.
And the outcome I want is to win. So are we all in agreement there? All sorts of strategies, all sorts of of things. So what I would say is that inputs then are the strategies and resources, and they're usually knowable at the beginning of the process. So we, in our game of basketball, which we're going to keep it super elementary. I know there's all sorts of factors when we get into professional sports and whatnot, but we're going to keep this real simple. We're looking at things like, so give me some example of, you've already talked about some, but what are some more examples of inputs in a basketball game?
Spirit, cheerleaders.
Spirit. Say
Team
that,
support.
cheerleader,
Yeah, team support.
cheerleaders, team support,
The ball.
the ball,
Good referees.
referees, good referees. Good is is
Fair, I should say.
fair referees. There we go.
That's good.
Other examples of inputs in a basketball game?
Media, announcers.
Media and announcers. Those are things that,
Like the players hear them. So if they're like, oh, someone's carrying the ball up the court and they're not saying something complimentary about them, it can impact a player's outcome.
could, unless they're laser focused,
That's right.
like the what was it? The snapper for
Right, like the
Yeah.
center or the quarterback.
Yep. And for Buffalo. But yeah. But for playing and winning the game, what are some other inputs in a basketball game? We had the ball. I think we talked earlier, I said something about plays, playbook, referees, players,
Court.
coaches,
Referees.
referees,
Equipment.
equipment,
Sneakers, good sneakers.
sneakers, good sneakers. Okay.
Get a basketball goal.
So you need a basketball goal, you need an arena, you need a floor,
Yeah.
water, you need fans. There's a lot
Fans.
of things that goes into it.
Lots of stuff that goes into it. Well, for the most part, who is in control of the inputs in a game of basketball? Who
The franchise owner.
franchise
I
owner?
was gonna say Talia, the franchise owner.
We're gonna be really elementary. We're not franchisee basketball team. But who does the franchise owner select to be in charge of the inputs? Then?
General manager or coach.
Thank you,
Coach.
Board Member Hawkins.
Yes. See, this is where, Board Member Rodriguez, this is where Cindy and sports analogies, this is where I need the saving grace of Rodney. You're going with franchise owners and I'm like, oh, this is maybe, anyway. So the coach, for our scenario, we're gonna say the coach. The coach is in control of the inputs. If I'm the coach, am I waiting to the end of the game to make decisions regarding what inputs or strategies we need to change or keep?
No.
No,
Mm-mm.
no.
I mean, that could be a situation in the game where you make a quick in-game adjustment. I mean, you make adjustments throughout the whole course of the game, so I wouldn't say no to that because
Yeah.
it may be a pivotal moment late in the game where you have to make that adjustment.
Yeah,
It's all situational.
Yeah, but am I waiting to the end of the game? Like the end of the game, the whistle's blowing, game over, so.
Always analyzing.
Well, the
Yeah, you're
game is
always
over.
analyzing.
The game. Okay.
Yeah, the coach is using information all the way through, right? So if I'm a coach in a basketball game, what do I know at halftime?
There's gonna be a post-game interview and you better have an answer no matter what the
I
outcome.
better have an answer no matter what for my post-game interview, and I hope I'm not focused on that in the halftime and yet,
Mhm.
but.
You know the
at
score.
halftime, what do I know? I know the score.
Score.
What else?
You know what plays you played and what isn't working against the opponent, and you know what plays you need to now switch gears to.
Yeah, I know what's been working, what hasn't against our opponent and what I might need to switch gears to. What else do I know? Middle of a game,
What you need to do to adjust
what I need to do to adjust. Hmm.
so that you might have a different strategy.
Yeah, so I might have a different strategy. What, what else does that halftime scoreboard? Well, the scoreboard's up all through the game, but what is it telling me?
If we're winning.
If we're winning, so I got the score. What other information do I typically have?
How much time you have left?
Well, how much time do I have left? Who's in foul trouble? How many fouls
Yeah.
do we have?
How
Okay,
many
so
timeouts?
timeouts left. What players might be injured? Who's fatigued? All of those things. I know how many baskets have been made by which players, who's within their free throws, who's not. All of those bits of information that are knowable in the middle of the process, in the middle of the cycle, help us to know the quality of the implementation of our inputs, of all of those things that the strategies and resources that we knew at the beginning of the game. And if we're on track to achieving our outcome, the outcome that we intend, which is to win. So if we're behind at halftime, would I use the same strategy were I winning? We're 10 points ahead.
At halftime?
Yeah, at halftime, would I employ a different strategy than were I 10 points behind?
No, of course. That would be silly.
Stay the course.
Yeah. So I would want to know all of those things about my players, about what kind of foul trouble we have, about the score, about what's been working, what hasn't. All of those things that we know in the middle of the cycle are outputs. And outputs result from a particular set of inputs, usually knowable in the midst of a cycle, and measure the implementation of the program or strategy. So now we have our shared language, inputs, outputs, outcomes. So now let's relate it to our school system. Talk basketball. Let's relate it to the school system. So as we mentioned, and before,
Sorry, Cindy. So you said the outcome was just to win, right?
yep, our outcome was to win. Inputs were all those things we knew at the beginning, all of those resources and strategies. Outputs were the things we knew in the middle of the game. And the coach is also tracking those outputs, and they're essentially responsible for those as well, for knowing them, using them, and determining strategy from there. So now we're relating it to a school system, which also has inputs, outputs, and outcomes. What would examples of inputs in a school system be? Curriculum,
Supplies.
teachers, supplies,
Facilities.
facilities.
Like philanthropic giving, like money coming into the
Yeah,
district.
money, philanthropic giving, the philanthropic money that's been given to the school system,
Or should be.
or should, okay. Yep, so some of that financial, philanthropic financial support.
Would
Brethren,
would union contracts also be an input? So like contracts.
contracts, yeah, we would know we would know the content of the contracts such that the yeah, and to know how to execute operations and what have you, such that the contracts are honored. I think that would.
Different departments.
And we would have the contracts that would tell us, yeah, how,
Along with the budget, the contracts, how to operate the school district at the start of the school year.
Yeah, you also got the different departments to have various programs within the district. I guess that would be an input.
Grants.
departments and the various. What else did you say? Grants?
Programs within the district.
Programs within the district, grants. Yeah, all of those are inputs in a school system. Resources and activities invested in a particular program or strategy, usually knowable at the beginning of the cycle. So then let's go to outputs. What are some examples of outputs in a school system?
Report cards.
Report cards.
So like data generated by the district. So whether that's like suspension, analytics, like things that would be reported on, I guess.
Yeah, so some of that data and analytics that the district produces in relationship to a variety of things, right? Yeah, that tells where things are at in the middle of the cycle, whether it's at a quarter or a semester or end of a week, whatever that cycle is.
Those assessments.
Assessments, what type of assessments?
Well, they could be, what do we use? Dibbles?
Dibbles?
Dibbles and, what's the other one?
iReady.
Already.
iReady. Yeah, so what type?
Was it
What is
McGowan?
your-
What's the other one? McGowan? We have some few
Those are
different
all-
people.
Okay, so like Dibbles and iReady are, what type of assessment do we categorize those as?
Student state assessments.
Literacy and numeracy.
Literacy and numeracy, but
Interim assessment?
interim assessments or formative assessments, yeah. Thank you, yeah, yep. So they're not, yeah, thank you. Just wanted to differentiate that from like the which we'll get to, the end of cycle assessments, end of year assessments. Any other examples of outputs?
I would say dropouts and then the associated loss of income for the district and opportunity for the individual.
So dropouts, as we know it in the midst of like a school year.
Yeah, because some of our students, they leave at different points in the year, like they don't
Mhm.
wait till like the last day of school.
Yep. Yep. So, yeah, benchmarks can be an output, attendance, dropout, discipline rates. Financial reports are an update or can be an output.
Maybe looking at the reverse of that, how sometimes charter schools, I've known during like January, February, they dismiss their students and then they're put back into the school district and we don't necessarily get funding for them because it's already been designated to the charter school for the whole year.
So the enrollment can be an output when it's measured, like an increase, you might have an increase in enrollment at
Mid-year.
year because of taking in students who were previously enrolled elsewhere.
Yes.
Yes, yeah,
And then sorry,
go ahead.
to board member Henderson's point, so like how many students that we have that fall under McKinney-Vento who are like actively homeless or have been actively homeless throughout the year. And then to board member Henderson's point, how many students or parents have requested to switch schools? Because I know that that's like a lot of what comes to me for constituent concerns.
Yeah, so if that's measurable in the midst of a cycle and knowable, then that could be considered an output. So let's go to outcomes. What are some examples of outcomes in a school system?
How many students we have that are registered to vote or serve in the military, or like have active plans for the next step. So whether that's like higher ed or union membership, but that's kind of umbrella with like graduation outcomes.
Yeah, so those could be individual outcomes in and of themselves, and or so let's see, what'd you say? Union membership, registration to vote. How many registered voters? How many students are registered to vote by the end of the year? Remind me what else you said?
How many students are serving in the military, like, and then how many students would consider themselves having like post-graduation plans?
Plans, okay. Thank you. Yeah, Adriana.
Some of the goals we're monitoring, like New York State assessments.
Yeah, so the New York State assessments, which are part of some of the goals that you have and are monitoring. So those summative assessments, the New York assessment is the one that comes at the end of the year. What else? Any others?
Yeah, specifically for the West Side and for my like ethnic community, how many of our students gave birth while they were students and how many of our students are parenting. So sometimes we collect information on that or we have the privilege to, but it definitely impacts their propensity to continue to succeed.
So let's test that a little bit.
I
If we
welcome
talk-
that, Cindy.
Yeah, so as far as whether it's an input, an output, or an outcome.
Yeah, it's
And if
definitely an
it's-
outcome because the YRBS shows that the majority of health education for our students comes from us. So if we're not providing that health education and our students aren't getting the resources they need from us, or if they're not, if they don't have primaries, we're a major driver for health.
Got it. So what I'm hearing then is that the idea being that the number of students who give birth is an outcome less of a program or a strategy, but it's a measure of the effectiveness then of a program or strategy at the end of the cycle. Is that?
Yeah, like our health education, which is one of the things that's really important to me.
Got it.
And speaking from lived experience, because I have had people in my family who are BPS students who are also parents, and they needed additional support.
Okay, so I hear that as an output, and then I also hear it as then as information that could come next cycle, at the beginning of the next cycle, as an input, something knowable at the beginning of the cycle such that we know how and what we need to resource. Okay, so I think that was a little bit of where I wanted to test the thinking on that and make
Perfect.
sure I was clear.
Thank you
Okay.
for that.
Okay, so we talked about test scores. We talked about graduation rates and various things umbrellaed in that graduation rate. We talked about, I don't think we did, but the annual audit could be an outcome measure, like outcome measure of your finances. So any questions on inputs, outputs, outcomes before we move on? So the next thing on your paper, I want you to make 3 columns as they are shown on the screen. 3 columns: inputs, outputs, outcomes. And then in your 3 columns, when you think about your most recent regular school board meeting, write the percentage of time that your board spent on inputs, the percentage of time your board spent on outputs, and then the percentage of time that your board spent on outcomes. And then those three columns added together should equal 100.
It should equal 100.
Yep. You took the meeting from start to finish, gave your best estimate of how much time, the percentage of that time you thought the board spent on inputs, this percentage of time the board spent on outputs, and the percentage of time your board spent on outcomes. Those numbers would equal 100. So which column received the highest percentage?
Inputs.
Inputs, anybody else have a higher percentage somewhere else?
I gave output slightly higher than inputs.
Output slightly higher?
Mhm.
What are you noticing?
We
As we're
spend
having this
more time.
conversation.
We don't spend a lot of time
More
on
time
winning.
in-
Not a lot of time on winning.
Not a lot of time on outcomes.
So now, and just real quick, I also had you think about earlier how much time you individually spend on how focused you are on student or on the reason school systems exist. And just real quick gut level, how much where do you spend most of your time in this category, inputs, outputs, outcomes? Where do you believe you spend most of your time relative to your role?
I spend 100% of my time on outcomes.
I spend 100% on outcomes.
Me too in my mind.
In my
In your mind? In my mind. Yeah. So it's, and that's kind of some of why we're having this conversation, just to think about, we talked at the beginning about how school systems exist to improve student outcomes, and you're going to hear a lot about all of those inputs, a lot, all the time. And so just the ability to think and focus on those student outcomes, you kind of have to counter some of that, like Rodney said, all the noise in the stands. Not that you shouldn't hear it and listen, but then when you come together in your precious meeting time, like we talked about, time, talent, treasure, time is the greatest currency this board has, because you're only as a board together for a fixed amount of time. Okay, so now we're gonna go a little further into this shared language. We've talked about inputs, outputs, outcomes. So now I want to distinguish between adult outcomes and student outcomes. What might be an example of an outcome in a school system that is not a student outcome?
Suspension.
Suspension,
They don't decide if they get suspended, the adults around them do.
thank you. Suspension. What is another outcome in a school system that is not a student outcome?
Mm.
Personnel matters.
Personnel matters. So personnel, like personnel matters, teacher retention, teacher discipline,
Retirements.
I'd
promotions,
like to add also morale, teacher morale,
teacher
And-
morale,
and maybe bias.
bias could be teacher morale. What are other outcomes in a school system that might not be a student, that are not a student outcome?
Attendance.
Attendance,
Resource allocation.
resource allocation, that balanced budget, that clean audit or whatever kind of audit. So yeah, an outcome can be just about anything that a school system creates, but a student outcome is a measure of what students know or are able to do. So that is the differentiation. Who has a question about inputs, outputs, outcomes, student outcomes, adult outcomes before we move on? So the differentiation is that student outcome is what students know. It's a measure of what students know or are able to do. It's about student results rather than adult results. Okay, so now let's go back to your 3 columns that you had. And then I want you to divide that outcome column in 2, just like that. And you're going to have it adult outcomes and student outcomes. Now, when you look at when you had your overall amount of time that you believed was spent on outcomes, now you're going to divide that between student outcomes and adult outcomes. So of the time you believe was spent on outcomes, how much of that was spent on adult outcomes? How much was spent on student outcomes? As you wrote those numbers down, what did you notice? As you divided that out, made that division between adult and student outcomes, what did you notice?
The majority of the percentages are adult outcomes.
The biggest percentage was adult outcomes.
For me,
Anyone else see anything different? So why is it essential that board members are able to distinguish between inputs, outputs, and outcomes, and then also further differentiate between adult outcomes and student outcomes? Why is it important?
Why are we here?
Why are we here? Yeah, why are we here? Why do school systems exist? To improve student outcomes. So without being able to distinguish all of that, boards will most certainly, and we find this, they stick to a pattern of focusing on the inputs and focusing on what the district is doing and what is happening with adults versus focusing on those student outcomes, on the reason that school systems exist. So let's go back to question 4 from the quiz. You estimated the percentage of time at your last board meeting that was focused on why school systems exist. Now compare that percentage of your total meeting time with the time you just identified as being focused on student outcomes. And then what did you notice? What are you noticing?
pattern.
Pattern? The same percent? For you, it was the same percent, which reflects, was your percent low? It was 0%. Got it. Okay, so 0% of 0 is 0.
Do any progress from monitoring or look at outcomes of students?
Yes. So, yeah, it was 0. It stayed the same. Okay, so then we're going to add one more layer just to this thinking about student outcomes, we're gonna add now student outcome goals. So talked about student outcomes, now goals. What is special about a goal?
Smart.
It's SMART. What does SMART mean? Who can remember?
Specific,
Specific,
measurable,
measurable,
attainable.
attainable.
Is it realistic or?
That is sometimes how the R is defined. We
Time.
time bound is the T. The R we use is results focused. So specific, measurable, attainable, results focused, and time bound. So to do that, to make it, to move from being a student outcome to a student outcome goal, it needs those things. It needs a starting point, so the agreed baseline. So like what percentage are we currently at? The ending point, which is where do we want to be in the future? So what is that percentage we're striving for? The starting date, the month and year, we like them to be as specific as possible. So month and year versus just a year. An ending date, month and year by when the measure will be reached. That desired ending point will be reached. The population, that is the group of students who will be impacted and or who are being measured. And then finally the measure, the instrument, the assessment, or whatever it is, whatever means it is that is being used to quantify it. All of those items need to be present for it to be a goal. And let's just talk for a moment about when we talk about a goal, one of the other things that we talk about, and it's in your student outcomes focused governance manual, but we want our goals to cause adult behavior change. So when we think about that, what it needs to be attainable. So it needs to be a percentage that is attainable. And yet it needs to cause adult behavior change. So there's a tension there. There's a tension there in attainability and adult behavior change. Why would we not put a ending point at 100%?
Room for growth.
Room for growth. Is 100% attainable? That's just the other piece I want to mention. Goals are recommended to last from 3 to 5 years. So on a 3 to 5 year goal, why is 100%? Why would we not want to put the endpoint at 100%?
Nothing's perfect.
Nothing's perfect. Is that attainable? Is 100% attainable? Let's say we're starting at what would be where are trying to think of where is, for example, 3rd grade reading proficiency right now?
Because
25-ish. So if you had a 3rd grade reading goal, would 25 to 30% or 25% to 100% in 5 years be attainable?
Possible.
That's a tough one, but it would be rough. It would be really hard to do
Very
it in
hard,
that
yeah.
time. Right.
And if you put a goal at 100%, what does that cause adult behavior change?
Possibly.
Possibly
Everybody crazy.
makes everybody crazy. What is it if you have a 3rd grade teacher who's told they need to achieve 100% in 5 years, get their students to 100%, their students passing does that cause the adult behavior change you might be looking for? No. Yeah, so they do have to be results focused, yes. And I think sometimes that realistic, attainable, but also cause adult behavior change. So it is, there is a science to it, I would say, and a lot of thinking that goes behind it. Because I know sometimes, and I'm going a little off
No, you're
a little
fine.
off
Yeah.
track
Mm.
here, but I know it is hard when you have students who are in that 75% who are not proficient. We really want 100% proficient. And that is our ultimate goal. But as far as it being truly, that next bite of the apple that we can realistically take, that we can resource, that we can achieve, and yet achieve adult behavior change is likely going to be lower than that 100%. And I know that question comes up a lot. I think I've heard it in your community actually as well. So just want to be clear that those goals aren't set because we don't believe that every child doesn't deserve to be proficient and to be, and that and don't and that every child does have the capacity. It's just where can we realistically get in the next 5 years if we resource this well? Okay, so then now I need to get back to my notes to see where we're at, because like I said, I went a little off track. So let's go to a few examples of student outcome goals. So where is what is on the first bullet, what is the starting point? 60%. What is the starting date?
July 17th.
Yeah, July 2017. What is the ending point?
48%,
68%.
by 22.
2020, by July 2022, that's the ending date. What is the population? Students, which students? Third grade. What is the measure?
Increase from 60 to 68.
Yeah, that's the measure that we're the current state and the future state of the measure. What is the actual measuring tool?
Fine.
Proficient performance. There isn't one. You know what?
It's
That's smart.
it's embedded
It's embedded.
in the third grade 3 proficient performance level.
So grade 3 reading. So probably a more forward way, proficient performance level for grade 3 reading on the state summative assessment. Yeah. Yep. That would be even more that would be more clear. Yep. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
Learned that from.
Yeah.
Council
Yeah, I know. Yeah. We probably, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm, okay, so let's go to some non-examples. What makes, does everyone, who doesn't see why why number 1 is a non-example? Why is that a non-example? The first one, students will improve academically.
That's smart.
It's not smart. It's not very focused. It doesn't give a
Start time, end
start
date.
end date. Students is pretty broad when you're working in a pre-K through 12 environment. That's a lot of kids to improve academically. It's just there are many districts who this might show up on their goal list though. So but it doesn't give a whole lot of, a whole lot of direction. How about, let's jump to the last one. The percentage of quality teachers retained each year will increase from 78% in May 2017 to 93% in May 2022. Why is that a non-example?
Just quality mean.
What does quality mean? Okay. We don't know what quality means. Why else? We don't know what the measure for quality is. Perhaps. What is another reason? This is a non-example. Talking about student outcome goals. Why is this a non-example?
There either.
Say that again?
The measure.
Measure, yeah. So the measure of quality isn't there.
An adult.
It's an adult outcome. Yeah. Yeah, that one is about adults. So yeah, that last one is about adults. The rest just, what about the third one? The number of findings in the audit will decrease from 7 in June to 0 by June 2024. 19 to 2024.
Also an adult outcome.
Also an adult outcome.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
That's what it
Yeah.
is. But
So, um, let's see, we are at 5:15. Let's keep going. So I think you're, so now we have all of that common language. I'm gonna zip ahead because I want, for Rodney to be able to do his half of our time. But I do want to go back to, so student outcome goals, we went over that because really when we, talk about student outcomes and an improvement in student outcomes, we talk about the board representing vision and value of the community. The vision is expressed through goals. Board has to prioritize their student outcomes through selecting 1 to 5 student outcome goals. So when we talk about a focus on student outcomes, what we're really getting to is a real laser focus on those goals that are adopted by the board. And so understanding what those are, how they're differentiated from everything else, is really important. And by the way, we are always happy to repeat anything, to go through this one-on-one, to answer any questions now and or later as things come up. Before I turn it over to Rodney, though, let's go back to question 6. We've had a chance to talk about the amount of time that's been spent, all of those things. But before we move on, question 6, I asked you first to write down what behaviors you believed were the top 3 that boards could engage in around the reason school systems exist. So what can boards do that will set the context for improving student outcomes? And then the second part of that was, from where did you derive this knowledge? So for whatever it is you wrote down, you had some kind of picture in your mind that these are the things we can do as a board that will most help students succeed, that will most improve student outcomes. I'm not going to ask you the 3 that you wrote down, but I do want to ask you where that picture came from. Don't want to know what you wrote down as far as the behaviors, but I want to know, how did you learn what those 3 behaviors are? In other words, how did you learn what effective governing looks like?
So I wrote down, I learned it from the Council of Great City Schools, New York School Board Association, and Erie County School Board Association.
Okay.
So those are the 3 people we've been working with as
Okay.
far as training since I've been on the board.
Okay. So that's where you learned those things from. Who else? Where'd you get your understanding of those 3 behaviors for school boards and school board governance?
Yeah, I can similarly concur with Vice President Everhart.
along with, some of the other school board associations that exist, Cube. Yeah, and, but I started out with the Council of Great City Schools with that 9-month rigorous training.
Yes.
So that was really important. Yeah, it was a nightmare.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Who else? Where did you learn what you put down?
You looking at me?
If you're willing to share.
Well, this is my first meeting, so
Yeah.
I don't.
Questions, and thank you for reading.
Thank you. So I don't have anything really drawn. You did provide to us the book Great on Their Behalf, so I was more or less looking things from knowledge, skill, mindset,
Huh.
and so as a good board member, you should be knowledgeable about what's going on in your district, know the information. How is that information being used to be improving student outcomes? And then the mindset, it shouldn't be about yourself. It should be about the students.
Yeah, so you took some learnings from Great on Your Behalf around the knowledge, skills, and mindset piece and put that to work for what you were looking for, those 3 top behaviors to be. Thanks for sharing. Who else? Anybody online want to share? Where did you learn those effective behaviors? What those top 3 effective behaviors would be?
I'll say three behaviors.
Yeah, where'd you learn it from? Not what the 3 are, but where did you learn? Where did you get that picture of what it is school boards can do? Where'd you come up with that from? How did you know? Not what they
Um,
are, but where'd you get that information?
It's really just based on just I guess your experience on how to handle those certain situations and environments. You got to be professionalism and got to have that behavior first and foremost. Intelligence, and I don't know. It's just a lot of things that so many behaviors that comes along with those experiences. So me, various variable things, but I'll definitely say professional and intellectual, behaviors you got to have in those type of systems first and foremost.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing. I see Board Member Rodriguez wrote on the chat, my formal education.
Oh, yeah. I think that was from earlier.
Oh, okay. Got it. I'm just seeing
I
that.
just want to add one very important one. That's how we've always done it.
That's
I
how
like to
we've
call
always done it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so the reason I asked that question is because the work of governance is largely not intuitive. Sometimes the things we intuitively believe that a board should do line up with effective governance, and sometimes they don't. So most of us have a pretty well-developed mental model for managing, because either we do manage, whether it be in our work or our homes, or we have been managed or are managed. And we understand solving problems. We understand responding when something goes wrong. We understand how to advocate for something we care about. We understand negotiating, persuading, campaigning, building alliances, disagreeing, trying to move other people toward our position. And we understand professionalism. Those things are familiar for sure. And some of those are still important and pieces of the role. But governance really is different. And I want to be really clear about the distinction. A school board exists in a political environment You hold elected office. Politics are inevitably going to be present, but politics is not governance. Very clearly, politics is not governance. Personal positioning, not governance. Winning an argument, not governance. Responding to every controversy, every constituent complaint, individual advocacy by itself, not governance. Getting the superintendent to address an issue that's important to me, not governance. Consuming the board's time with conflict, personalities, procedural battles, whatever the issue of the moment is, no matter how urgent those things might feel in that moment, governance is really the work of the board as a body, and it's what the board does to create direction for the school system through its goals and guardrails, and holding the system accountable for producing those results for students. That is governance. And it requires discipline because there's always going to be something competing, always something competing for your attention. There always is going to be another controversy. I'm sorry, but there is. There's always going to be another complaint, another individual request, another disagreement, another issue that can consume the meeting, whatever meeting it is. And the question isn't whether or not those things exist, whether or not those are going to come at you, whether or not those are going to come at you hard and hot sometimes. That is not the question. The question is, what work can only this board, acting collectively as the governing body of Buffalo Public Schools, do for the children of Buffalo? So when we look at the board behaviors that most strongly align with improvements in student outcomes, they fall into three broad areas: setting priorities, those are your goals and guardrails; monitoring priorities with frequency, so doing that frequent progress monitoring; and ensuring that resources are aligned. And I said ensuring resources are aligned. The board likely isn't going to be the ones aligning the resources. They're going to be taking the recommendations from the superintendent, who has done her level best to ensure that the top priority in the budget and in resource allocation is accomplishing the goals and honoring the guardrails. So and again, when we talk about resource alignment, we're also talking about the board's resource alignment. And the board's most precious resource is the time that you all spend as the governing body around the table, whether it be as in your regular business meeting and all the other times that various meetings happen, whether they be your committee meetings or what have you. So one last question. When the board spends substantial time on things that are not the main thing, so that are not student outcomes and that are not your student outcome goals, where do you think her time goes? And where does her team's time go?
Can you repeat that?
If the board spends its time on things that are not, the majority of its time on things that are not the main thing. So we talked about school systems exist to improve student outcomes. That is the main thing. And then the board has further selected the main thing through student outcome goals, which are the policy statements representative of the community's vision. So when the board does not spend time on the main thing, where does that mean that the superintendent spends their time? Where do you think the superintendent time goes? And then through her team's time. Not student outcomes. Yeah, so yep, so what the board focuses on typically, again, what happens in the boardroom echoes all the way down to the classroom. It's called parallel process. So if the board spends its time on everything that isn't student outcomes, it is essentially directing the superintendent to spend their time on everything that isn't superintendent or is not student outcomes, and all the way down. So that's the governance challenge is you can't eliminate every distraction, but you can decide whether those distractions are going to govern you, and you can decide how you're going to spend your time and where your focus is going to be. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rodney.
All right, so I guess I'm going to pick up from there and going to make an effort to try to connect what Cindy's just gone over with you all and take it from the theoretical into some of the current realities of your governing and of your boardsmanship. How do we go from understanding this? And by the way, let me just make a comment here around these effective board behaviors, setting priorities, monitoring priorities with frequency, ensuring resources are aligned. I know, having gone through a whole lot of training over the years and still go through training over the years, oftentimes school board members will hear that your three main priorities are what? Hiring and retaining the superintendent, passing the budget, what else? Probably that, right?
Academic achievement.
Actually, unfortunately, not often does that come up. It's often if you look at what the law says your minimum responsibilities are, oftentimes it's hiring a superintendent, passing a budget, and I can't remember what's the third one that always comes up.
Student grades or something like that.
Yeah, adopting policies. And so I just wanted to kind of just refocus and recenter here around these three things as you all were engaging in the conversation. Another quote that popped into my mind. Anybody know a famous quote by Mike Tyson, boxer Mike Tyson?
So many.
Mike Tyson would always say that everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face, right? When you know, right? And so as was kind of mentioned earlier that Mr. Henderson was mentioning, that mindset, the discussions, the focus on inputs, outputs, and outcomes that Cindy just took you through, and I know some of you have gone through before, and as long as we're coaching, we will continue to come back to that. And one of the reasons why, I think one night I was talking to Vice President Everhart on the phone, and I cannot remember, I think I was headed to, in my mind, I was going to go to Home Depot. No plug for Home Depot, but that's in my mind where I was going. And we were just talking on the phone, talking about the agenda, talking about some things. And I ended up at my parents' house. And so I don't remember how I got there. Whatever the route was, because my parents, that's where I grew up, and I still go there, cut grass and do things. But the pattern for me was so powerful that I just ended up there. And so part of the reason why it's important to refocus, revisit, give re-attention to these things that we just talked about today is we want the pattern to be that like when Mike Tyson hits you in the ring, that you don't lose all sense of what your goal is to win that match, that your pattern stays focused on winning for students, and you don't just after old behaviors or the way things have always been done end up not the place that you intended. And that is something that is very important. And if AJ Crable was here, he would say, that's why we practice, right? You practice, you practice, you practice, because you develop new patterns by doing that. So I just want to kind of tie this back over the next half hour or so, just kind of tie it back to this work that you all are doing together. And I just want you to notice on this slide, it says your student outcome focused governance implementation plan, and see if I can get this to pop up here on my screen. Okay, let me see, I might have to stop and restart. All right, so part of this work that that you are undertaking and that we are undertaking with you is about those things that you just kind of talked about. What are some tools? What are some practices? What are some means by which you can move towards that goal of being more effective as a board in winning for students? And so some of you, I think most of you remember, and Mr. Henderson will remember because I just did this with him on Sunday. Some time ago, I interviewed each and every one of you. Did a one-on-one interview with you, ask you about different questions, why you thought this school system existed, what is it that you wanted to achieve, what are some things you think are going well, and so forth. And all that information, along with some of your data, help to form this implementation timeline. And so when we have these conversations that you just had about discipline and focus, this implementation timeline serves as a guide. It serves as a playbook. It serves as a implementation strategy on research activities and behaviors and practices that, if the board collectively is focused and disciplined, can help you achieve your goals, your student outcome goals, but also help you achieve your goals of serving on behalf of students. So I'm not going to, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of this, but I want to share something with you again that I shared back in February when we went through this outline before. So I'm just going to read a couple of portions to you, and I'd just like to get your sense of what it means to you. So first paragraph, the implementation timeline is a board-owned governance instrument. I'm going to stop there. What does that mean to be board-owned? Board-owned governance instrument.
Does it mean we came together, we created it together, and it belongs to us?
Belongs
We
to
can change
you.
it? Does it
So-
mean we could change it?
Well, but the key point here is that it's yours, right? You own it. You own it as a whole. It's not the Cindy and I don't own it. The VP for Executive Affair doesn't own it. The board chair doesn't own it. The board owns this government instrument. Its adoption signals the board's commitment to changing its own behaviors in service of improved student outcomes. While the Council of Great City Schools provide coaching and training and guidance, the timeline does not represent our plan. It represents the board's work. So as we continue along this journey, I'm going to be a much better coach at bringing us back to the implementation plan. And then I'm going to also be expecting that at every meeting, you all have one of these at your side or at your tape. So I know you have it electronically, but it's going to be important because as Cindy and I were riding over earlier, and I think when some of us were having some conversations before the meeting, my first visit to Buffalo was a year ago. So as you think about a year, and we were talking about as adults, a year of adult time is very different from a year of students' time. And so we want you to be mindful of each moment that the board is not focused on the things that you just talked about earlier. Is time that is lost for students. And if we want to win for students, and if you want to win for students, we have to be focused and be able to create the environment to carry out the various activities that are recommended, so that as you all were looking at your self-evaluation, so that you can move from point A to point Z. Also want to just mention here what the timeline guides, coaching and training for the full governance team that includes the board and the superintendent. As Cindy mentioned earlier, we are available for individual coaching and training. Some of you all call me at 11 at night. Some of you all call me at 6 in the morning. It's okay. That we're here to support you and be able to provide you the coaching that you need in order to be successful on behalf of students. This includes also district staff. And there's a reason that we sequenced these activities. I think in this, over the past 6 months, we've kind of deviated some. I'm going to, just to give you a hint, at the end of my conversation, I'm going to come back to our 2-day workshop, because what you did today is about 1/10 of what really needs to be grounded. And I was checking with just past calendars. I think it's been maybe 2003 when the board as a whole with the superintendent has actually gone through the full 2-day workshop together with everyone present. And over time, with changes, it's easy to not practice or to not exercise. And we know we don't exercise, our muscles don't stay tight. So I'm going to be looking for a commitment by the time I finish here today, where everybody, part of the governance team, can be present for us to execute this 2-day, not for the council's benefit, but for your benefits and your governance on behalf of students.
Hey, when,
Yes, ma'am.
when did that last happen?
I think it was 2003.
Oh.
2023?
I'm sorry, 2023. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yeah. Last year we did it was like a 1-day hybrid, because that's when I first started.
We got one.
One, okay, I remember.
So,
No, that was this year.
what's that? No.
Yeah, last year we all came. This was when former board members, Woods and Belton Cotman was there.
Talking about last year, August?
Last year.
That was not a full 2-day. That was a,
Two-day workshop.
yep, because Cindy and I were there. That was my first time here. And we ended up doing like a 1-day hybrid, and we had staff in part of the room and have yet to be done.
You came there for one day.
Yep,
Yep,
yep.
yep.
I promise you. It
Yep,
was
and
not-
we went into another room for half a day.
Yes.
Ray and I went in with the staff. Yep.
Yeah.
It was on Dr. Mbenga's birthday.
So anyway, I'm, keeping progress, Vice President Everhart, to her credit, stays on top of this and refers back to this. We need to make sure that as we're working with our sessions going forward, that we're being mindful of the cadence and the patterns, and that as I'm going to talk about in a moment, that you all will be willing on behalf of your students to look at, as you started off today, really look at where your time is being spent, and to work collaboratively with us to find the time in order to make sure that you all are benefiting from the different activities and what the research shows will lead you towards your goal of being an effective board on behalf of your students. Cindy, anything you want to add before
I don't think so. I think, but I will echo that, the 2-day workshop, yes, it is a commitment. However, it is, in my mind, it is critical in having that shared understanding, obtaining that knowledge, skills, and mindset, foundation, such that you all can move forward together. And that it's foundational to being able to have some of the further conversations, and then really getting deeper in and becoming more focused, more effective. Yeah.
it's training camp and preseason. So
Yep.
you got to do your 2-a-days, you got to do your training camp, you got to learn your plays before you can get in the game and win. And right now, I think you all are kind of paralleling, being in the midst of the game at the same time without having the full collective benefit of as I think Board Member Hawkins said earlier, everybody being on the same page towards the same goal as a team.
Yeah, and it's not extra work. It is
Right.
the work.
It is the work. Any questions before I move on from there?
You want that commitment today?
I'm gonna get it.
We don't have all 9 board members here, so do you
I-
want to do it at a different time?
No, no,
Okay.
no. Nope.
I have
You know why? You know why?
Why?
Because you all said you want to win for students. So we're not going to be distracted about who's here, who's not here. We will
Great,
we will push on.
great.
Yes, ma'am.
Question, when you are getting like some of that noise, I know it's like, oh, just ignore. But do you have like canned responses ready sometimes? Like, oh, well, board members need to know about whatever, curriculum, operation, whatever. Like, what would you say? Like, oh, well, that's what our COO is for. That's what our CFO is for.
Mhm.
So I
Or would you not
Do you have it?
respond?
So what I would say is that part of that is it's perhaps not a canned response, however, it is part so it is part of educating the community on what the board's role is. And what we would say is the board's role is, yes, to represent the vision and values of the community. It's to set and monitor goals, guardrails, and the superintendent accountability that goes with that, and do whatever is legally required of the board. So the board is going to have to adopt curriculum. It is going to have to adopt a budget. It is going to have to do all of those things. And there probably will be a base of knowledge that you have to have in order to understand, do these things align? How do you see, through the lens of your goals and your guardrails, how do these things help us accomplish? It's not that you can't know or shouldn't know. It's just about who's doing the selecting and then what is it that the board needs to do to have needs to know to have the confidence to vote yes or whatever on those things that you have to adopt.
I
That
think
you're
that's the
required by
scary
law.
part. I think that's the scary part for board members when we hear that we're only supposed to basically evaluate the superintendent once a year. And then that is when we kind of judge, did the superintendent do this, do that? But it's scary because you are literally voting on things in a packet every month, putting your seal of approval on it. And how much can you dig into that to ask questions? I think that's kind of where boards falter and kind of get into the weeds of things because it's like, hey, I'm signing off on this and it might come back on me.
And I think some of that will be some of what Rodney's going to get into on how some of those practices and processes can still be handled in a way that is more effective as far as your currency of time.
Yeah, and to that point, our coaching is not that. Each month when you all are monitoring, you are evaluating right then and there. So it's not, but we'll speak to that some more. But just understand that the cadence of monitoring, the discussion that we're having, the items that are on that implementation timeline is preparing you for that. Just like on the implementation timeline is the board going back out to the community and sharing with the community your progress. So there is a process involved with that. I just wanted to recenter again. We've acknowledged why we're here. You've said that that you're taking on the mindset that school systems exist for one reason and one reason only, improving outcomes for students. Madam Superintendent, you feel free to chime in here since I borrowed from a presentation that you did. But there was a presentation, I think it was back in February, and part of the discussion that was going on was just giving the board a insight into your federal designations and how the district is performing, how your students are doing, how your campuses are doing. Is there anything you like to just reinforce the board in terms of what we're seeing on the screen, what the green means, what the red means for the current reality of your campuses in Buffalo?
Just quickly, the green is a designation called LSI, local strategic, local supports and interventions. So it is no longer the old good standing. So this model represents that every school needs improvement. Every school needs intervention. And so some of those schools in green are either green by the skin of their teeth, quite frankly, or are doing really well, but there's still opportunities for growth. So we should be looking at all of our schools as needing some sort of support and intervention. The yellow and orange obviously are somewhere in the middle. They need supports, significant supports. And so those are schools that might be teetering on, especially the orange, teetering down to the red because they have multiple subgroups that need supports and interventions. And certainly our red, are those students and schools that need, it is urgent.
Yeah.
It is urgent that we circle around and we see what we can do to fix the problems, the various problems, and really, really raining down supports and interventions.
And the point the reason why I just wanted to bring this back to your attention, as you're going to hear us keep talking about the currency of time. So the time that the board is spending, as you mentioned earlier, on adults or other things that may distract, this is not necessarily at the forefront of the board's mind. What the board spends its time on, the district is going to spend. And also what the board pulls the superintendent away from can unintentionally be this. I pulled together another piece. You all had a presentation, I think it was in March or April, dealing with your strategic plan. Ignore the goal areas. What I really just want to, again, bring your focus to question that came up earlier. So just looking at coming out of last year's data, at a very high level, your English language arts proficiency was at 27.5%. Math was at 25%. Fifth grade science, 20%. Eighth grade science, 17.1%, and so on. And so that's your current reality for your students. And so any thoughts, any feedback, any questions about where your students are and what your students are crying out for you to give focus and attention?
This is important, Rodney, because I guess I was under the impression that we were only supposed to ask questions in terms of this data and the other data as it relates to the monitoring calendar and to that one goal.
When you say only, so part of the work that you're doing is the board has priorities. Cindy asked you earlier about what are your goals. I'm going to bring those up again. What we are saying is that if you have 50 priorities, you end up with none.
Nothing. I understand that, but what I'm saying is beyond that one goal that the monitoring calendar is leading our attention to for that board meeting for that month, we can also ask questions about the CSI.
I see.
Satisfied.
Well, no, right. No. So when you're going through the monitoring is going to be based upon the calendaring of as you mentioned with the monitoring calendar. That does not mean that the superintendent may recommend bringing to you additional information that's important for you to understand. But we definitely want there to be focus and discipline around the monitoring report, because again, as you asked the question I mentioned earlier, this is part of when you're playing the game, seeing how you're doing quarter by quarter
Right.
towards the goals and the priorities that the board has set.
Okay.
So is this might be like an annual thing? So we won't get the updated numbers till like January or whatever. So maybe that's something we try to do a work session on in February's or.
Well, you have
The interim goals.
You have your 5-year goals. You'll have your calendar, that monitoring calendar, which is one of the items that needs to be worked on, because in the past, your monitoring calendar did not expand the full duration of the goals. So we want the board to be able to see from today to the duration of the goals, what you're going to be monitoring throughout that sequence. And the superintendent who knows that information in working with you is likely to place in the monitoring calendar that end of the year kind of progress report is as well.
Other things.
And other things as well.
I think sometimes that's the struggle when we are monitoring. And I think Zulich and Everhart mentioned that. So there may be just one interim goal, for example, or one goal during that meeting, and we ask questions, and before you know it, a half hour, 15 minutes, half hour is gone, and then there's nothing else. And so when you talk about the percentage of time, right, spent on monitoring, that's what we got.
Yeah.
So how do we,
Expand.
expand on that?
So we're gonna go back to training camp. Because if you remember, one of the things that we'll be working with your superintendent on, and as you all have talked about, looking at your goals in the interims, we need to come back to that. But from my observation, it's not about what you're receiving. It's the entire practice of monitoring. I want to recoach. We need to revisit, because right now, almost as I mentioned earlier, the monitoring that you're doing is being done in bits and pieces. It's not the full cycle of coaching around monitoring from the monitoring calendar, what the report should look like, how the board receives the information, how the board sends questions in advance, how the board knows the difference between technical and tactical and strategic questions. So right now it's monitoring light. It's not the full depth of the monitoring. And again, that's one of the reasons why the 2-day and the other work, and why I'm going to be continue to ask the board if you all will look at your agenda and set time, because that really needs to be foundational in order for the board to get the benefit of the monitoring, the superintendent, most importantly, your students. And it's also where your community, in being able to observe you all doing that monitoring, they also are understanding where the board's focus is and just how urgent the board is taking what is the main thing. So we will need to recoach that, and I think you all have a great opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
So,
Okay.
and the other thing that I would add to that is not to get, so I agree completely with that, like continuing to build the effective monitoring muscle and all of the things around that. The other piece of that is that I want to encourage you to do is, and it kind of goes back to VP Everhart's, because we've always done it this way, right? Like, so right now, when we talk about the time that the board spends, and then that fraction of time that is monitoring, I don't want you to think about needing absolutely to increase your amount of monitoring time to get up to 50% of the amount of time you all spend, and this is the amount of time you spend between regular board meetings.
how I'm thinking about it, Cindy. I'm like, how do we expand on that little bit? Yeah.
So you've got your regular board meetings, you've got all your committee meetings, you've got all of the things, right, that you do. So it's not just increasing that fraction of monitoring time, which can be done. It's also
All of the outcomes.
reducing all of the.
Oh,
yeah, so
reducing all
it-
of the inputs and
it's
outputs
Yeah.
in
input,
order to get
output
straight to
stuff. It's
outcomes.
it's some dieting essentially.
Yeah.
Yep.
The SMART goal is 10%.
I just want to say, if I can add, like, I am excited about the recoaching, the rebuilding, And I'm excited for the key staff members to be a part of that because I think that was another part of the disconnection is that we were allowed in certain parts, but not all parts. So it's like so my father was a factory worker forever and ever and ever. So it was like telling my father to build this engine, but not having him be a part of all of it, what the engine actually even means. So then you say, okay, Robert, go get on the line and build the engine. But he doesn't really know from all points what the engine is. And so being just formally recently on the team who had to give the board the report and the monitoring, it felt really hard and disconnected because we never really understood the intention behind the goals. And so I welcome that we can find 2 days to sit down. So we're starting all together at the same, so that it would make sense for all of us.
I love that too. And I saw that,
Well,
we had got, Janine and I had done the training last year, and then the end was doing a board meeting, like a mock board meeting. We got the facts, but I think board members having to play different roles was like, where the heck did that question come out of? Like left field, like it's not relevant to this report I gave, or like I think that was very valuable for me. Just trying to see like what other people are doing too, a little bit, but just I don't know how we could, I'd love us to have like a mock meeting, yeah.
Yeah, so like a more of a simulation, less high stakes, more just practice kind of thing.
okay, I have a question, but my question is to my fellow board members. So when you have done monitoring in the past, is it effective? Is it smart? Are you adjusting if goals are not on track? I mean, how have you done this in the past?
Oh, I think,
If you're Mike, can I just chime in for a moment?
yeah, go ahead.
So, you're a new board member.
Yeah.
Your superintendent's in a new position. Every time you get a new board member, every time it's a new team.
Like starting over.
Right. And so this current collection of board members, you came on one in January. So you had, about half the board that came on in January. And if you, about 7 to 9 have been on the board less than 3 years. And so that's what I'm saying, from this point where you are now, you have an opportunity to build together. And even as you hear some of your colleagues speak about some other training that they had, all that training is great, but it's this team. You all are the board. It's not past board members. It's not, what I would just say is.
Say, just to your point, Rodney, I think Chief Botticelli does a great job at presenting exactly what we asked for, which is the goal that we want to monitor for that specific time. But I think with this new board, what we probably should get is more data, more background data. How are specifically African-American men doing? Because we got one goal, we monitored one goal, I think 2 months ago, where it said, oh, suspensions are down, right? But then buried in that goal was, but not among African-American men. And so if we could see that kind of more, if this board agrees, the whole board agrees, if we could see that. Well, yeah, that was.
Let me take you back. So there's a reason that we spent the first hour talking about inputs, outputs, and outcomes.
Right.
And so getting back to, it's important for that foundational knowledge to be there, because we are going to come back to you and talk about the goals, and also give your superintendent opportunity to revisit the interims. But this foundational piece is important. And as we recoach the monitoring, there's also the opportunity for the board to assess the effectiveness of the monitoring. So
For a different model, right?
no, say what I'm just saying is, as I talked about this implementation timeline, and as I'm gonna mention here before all my time runs out, I just kind of need you to wipe the slate clean.
Can I rephrase it? I think the way I would then maybe say it, well, then from this point forward, from what you are sharing with us, if the board agrees that we're gonna have this approach going forward, that it's proven to be effective, and then that's where we go.
Just take all that old coffee and just pour that old coffee out.
That's the coffee.
Okay. So just a couple of things before, I think we started about 5 minutes late, Salva, but I do know it's important for your time. Just a couple of areas of opportunities to this point. So Cindy mentioned a moment ago about a diet. There's a process that we call agenda diet, where we will work with you to go and actually look at your agenda and to, as a board and a collective, do your own assessment of whether or not your agendas are student outcome focused. We will walk you through being able to do a time use evaluation, going through and actually see from a meeting and from a standpoint based upon the definitions that we talked about earlier, really being able to evaluate on a meeting by meeting basis how you are spending your time so that you can do what during halftime, make adjustments. And so I just want to kind of highlight, I did a meeting analysis. This is from earlier in the year. I shared it with the board. And in this particular meeting, the duration of the time was 110 minutes. The board spent 0 minutes on student outcomes, but there was a lot of talk. This was a business meeting around grievance policies, superintendent performance, annual calendar, finance report and budget. In this particular meeting was just one speaker. The point that I really want to ask you all to give some focus and attention to is that a significant amount of your time is being spent on your consent agenda with exceptions. And so if you go back and replay the videotape and go back and look at your meetings and look at how much time you all spend on your consent agenda, which by definition is supposed to mean that the board has already reviewed, prepared, and the superintendent is bringing recommendations that can be voted on in one bunch, one lot. Generally, consent agenda should take about 2 to 3 minutes, if that long. But part of the pattern that I'm observing that I brought to your attention before is the consent agenda largely has operational activities and actions that the superintendent is bringing to you for action, largely because it's either legally required or because you have a policy that says so. But let me finish.
Okay.
So, but what I observe and what I like for you to go back in, as I've asked some of you to do, but I'm gonna ask all of you, go back and look at what's happening. The superintendent may be recommending a contract to buy a boiler. I'm just making it up. It gets pulled off the agenda. And now the board is spending time about, well, how many boilers, what color the boilers, what are the boilers like, why are we doing boilers?
Why blue light versus
Yeah, exactly. And so that discipline and focus on student outcomes is critically important. I'm just raising this because I'm gonna just letting you be prepared. I'm gonna push and ask you all to really take a deep dive and look at what your actions are around the consent agenda that's student outcome focused and what's other than student outcome focused. And how can you work collectively to get to the point that those items that belong with the superintendent more operational in their purpose can get voted on in a lot that then allows you to have time available for what you say is your main thing. So
So did you see, over the last 2 months, President Evidence Brown took initiative and she removed the consent agenda paper that goes around during meetings. So I think she was attempting to get there.
Yeah, I think
You
there's
observed it too.
progress.
Sure.
I think there's progress. The point that I just want to raise here is you being able to take the time and really look at your agendas and find ways to be more efficient in the use of your time so that we're not asking you to spend more time in meetings.
Right.
We're asking you to prioritize the time that you do spend in meetings on student outcomes.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna you all remember we did norms and protocols before, and we were doing different scenarios. And where we ended in June was a scenario around social media. I don't think we have time to do that now, but I'm going to send this to you. And I'm just going to ask when I send it to you to think about this scenario just for the sake of argument. Well, not for the sake of argument, just for the sake of governance right now. I'm just going to raise the scenario. We won't dig into it, but I want you to just hear it out. A school board member established a personal Facebook page and is encouraging stakeholders to provide feedback on the school district via the page. The board member regularly responds to comments made on the page. And I just want you to think through this. What are some pros, cons, maybe pitfalls of this scenario, and be prepared for us to talk about it, because one of the recommendations that I have for you is to look at developing a protocol around social media. How if the board is together as a whole, if the board is trying to communicate effectively with the community, if the district has a communications team, what can be some challenges that the board member or the board as a whole could create in your messaging that you're trying to send to your community as to why you think it's important that their children come to Buffalo Public Schools. Okay. And then I just want to close with this. You all wisely, in your process of adopting goals and guardrails, you also adopted guardrails for the board. And so each meeting, each business meeting, you all start with reading those guardrails. And I'm just going to read them just for the sake of time. Guardrail 1, the board, either collectively or through the actions of individual board members, Guardrail 1, shall not invest less than 50% of its minutes each month into monitoring student outcome goals. Anyone have any questions about what that guardrail means? Any questions? That you shall not invest less than 50% of your minutes each month into monitoring student outcome goals. Guardrail 2, shall not perform or appear to perform any of the responsibilities delegated to the superintendent. Now, embedded in that, do you know what has been delegated, responsibilities that have been delegated to the superintendent?
Day-to-day operation.
So when we go, if we started on this policy diet, and one of the things when we work through the policy diet, we're going to be asking you to review the policies that you have delegated to the superintendent, in addition to the work that we know belongs with the superintendent. And so again, just going back to what I'm observing when you all have been going through your pulling things off the consent agenda, more times than not, you are spending time that are the responsibilities that have been delegated to the superintendent. So that's what I just want to make sure you're mindful of. Shall not violate any board adopted policy or district procedure. That's very broad, but you have to, again, why we want you to have your own governance manual that has goals, guardrails, delegations, and what's legally required. And then the fourth one, shall not behave in a manner that would violate the student code of conduct. So just as you will get the opportunity to go back and revisit what this board and this team wants in terms of representing, from the board's perspective, representing the vision and values of the community as reflected in your goals and guardrails. Also want this team to take a moment and just kind of make sure that the board guardrails also are reflective of what this team is committed to doing moving forward. But I don't want you to just sit there at every meeting and just recite it and not understand what you're reciting. And that's going to be it for now. So now I come back to my commitment. So you heard your superintendent say how important it is for the team to be on the same page, for there to be clarity around goals and guardrails, how to be collective understanding of mindset and knowledge and skills. And so I'm not going to ask you for a date right now. What I'm asking is there, for those of you that are in this room and on the screen, is there unanimous commitment to a 2-day workshop around being student outcome focused that serves as the bedrock for you to be effective in your work on behalf of students?
Full, yeah, so, and when we talk about that, 2 days, full
Full
attendance, both days. Typically, 9 to 5, 9 to 6.
Yep.
Depending on where breaks come,
Yep.
or how you do
And
that.
it can be weekdays, weekends, and you just want 2 consecutive days. Is there anyone in here who's is not committed to that? And it's fine to say so if that's the case.
I can't.
Is it just
I have other employment.
is it any 2 consecutive days, or do you need advance notice? What?
I can't answer that right now.
Okay.
I'm just not committing.
Okay, well, I appreciate your candor and your honesty with that. So we will work to see if we can work around schedules. But it may be the case that we'll move on and through individual support and coaching, if we can see what we can do there. But it is important. So if you can just kind of look ahead at your schedule and see if there's ability to set those that time aside.
What is, I guess my question would be, since Eric isn't available, what is the minimum number of board members that you would do a retreat? You would like to do a retreat for?
Everybody present.
So,
Yeah.
so that's,
So let me-
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
I think these are designed for the full board or full governing team
Okay.
to be present. And really, this is the work that has been committed to, the timeline that's been committed to. If I know Rodney doesn't have it up right now, but the timeline had us doing this months ago. And we're not there. What I would hate to do is encourage the idea that we're going to, I think it's important to understand that, those at the table make the decisions. So those who attend, those who, and that's anytime. When when board members are not able to be present for whatever it is that the board determines, then they are putting the faith in their colleagues that the decisions, actions, learnings, all of those things are, they're just entrusting those decisions to those who will be present. So, and that's not to, I understand work commitments, all of those things. And I also appreciate the candor in that committee. And I also would not want that to permit others to not attend.
I was gonna ask too, what is the possibility of videoing those 2 days for those who can't make the commitment?
That's, I think it's better that we work towards, achieving the goal of what can we do to try to have everyone there. And if not, then, as Cindy said, we'll cross that bridge.
So you're willing to do the retreat with, just,
How many
just
will
to
come?
keep things going, you know, we want to adhere to the timeline. We want to keep things moving, even if board members aren't available. And so you're willing to do the retreat even if board members aren't available?
Well, what I'm willing to do is to work with the board to find dates that will work for everyone. And if we're not there, then I'll cross that bridge.
Great. Well, can you send us all the email and request dates?
Yes.
And also share that quote that you opened the meeting with.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
In fact, why don't I end with that?
I love that.
Let me find that again. I will end with that. Well, I opened with,
Do you have it written down to where you can share it on your screen? I could take a picture.
I'll send it to you. It's actually a
Okay.
screenshot.
Here. You can add that to that email.
Yes.
Okay.
This is a quote by Dr. Howard Thurman. Leaders must be tough enough to fight, tender enough to cry, human enough to make mistakes, humble enough to admit them, strong enough to absorb the pain, and resilient enough to bounce back and keep on moving.
That's right.
Thank you for representing us to
Like that.
that quote on leadership. Anything?
Thank you for.
Madam Vice President.
so-
President and-
Thank you. So thank you so much to Rodney Jordan and Cindy Ellsberg, our Council of Great City Schools coaches, for another great session. And this ends our executive affairs work